Hello and welcome everybody to Stranmillis University College. My name is Celia O'Hagan and I'm one of the senior lecturers in teacher education at the college, and I have an appetite, an interest and enthusiasm for the use of remote and blended learning. I run the 4-week Stranmillis blended learning course, CPD course for all teachers in Northern Ireland and indeed further education colleges. The blended learning course is an introduction to the way in which you can plan a solid e-lesson, whether that is a lesson that is live or whether that is a lesson that is pre-recorded. So a lot of instruction on that 4-week course. So I'm here today following my experience of working with now over 1,000 teachers since March last year, and working together with you, the many thousands of teachers on the Northern Ireland Teachers Collaborate group. I'm delighted to share in the discussion and the ongoing conversation about good practice and indeed hopefully sooner rather than later post-COVID experiences. Today I have brought two of my wonderful past students and colleagues who are going to demonstrate many of the tools that are used in your sector. So the first presentation and demonstration will be from primary nursery sector, and that's with my good colleague and friend, Ms. Julianne Mullally. Julianne's a recent graduate of her Masters at Stranmillis, Master of Teaching, her online programme. She's been a student online now for a number of years and has, of course, a vast experience as a senior teacher in the primary sector. She works with Key Stage 1, but she has experience in Foundation and Key Stage 2. So she's here today to share with you her Seesaw experience and, of course, many of the various tools that will facilitate and support the discussion and the dialogue. So we're really excited about that. She's going to show you some of the ways in which she has incorporated pre-recorded lessons and activity packs into everything she does in Seesaw. Following her presentation, I'll be back on screen just to touch base with you, but we will then have a post-primary focus. And so there's something here today for everybody. The post-primary focus is from my good friend Karen, one of the administrators as well from the panel at Northern Ireland Teachers Collaborate. And Karen comes from the post-primary sector, has huge experience of working as an Apple educator, a Google educator, and indeed, ICT is her subject area. So she's going to share with us some of her findings. She's been homeschooling many of the post-primary children in her care, as she herself has been working remotely, not just during lockdown, but for the last academic year. So Karen has lots to share with us. She's very interested in promoting the current dialogue around synchronicity, which is where you have live lessons. And so she's got an experience of live lessons, given that she has been working remotely and wants to share that with you. So she's going to zoom in and look literally at Google Meet and some of the ways in which Google Meet can be facilitated at this particular time. She's also going to introduce you to one of the many tools of Google Suite. For this first session, we do plan other sessions to catch up with you later. We do note many of the questions that have come through in your application, and we had over 300 teachers sign up for this session. And of course, many of you have questions around Google Suite, Google Classroom, and many of the tools and apps associated with that. So we'll do our best today to start that conversation, but please do keep checking in. We do intend to come back and share with you as time goes on. So I'm going to kick off today. I'm just going to bring my presentation up on screen, and as you can see, I have slides in the background. I'm using a little tool, if anybody's interested, called Snagit. I do talk about it on the forum quite a bit, and it's an easy tool to move between camera, and indeed I can bring my camera in as well. So I've given you an overview of the session. Julianne's going to follow me shortly with her input and demonstration around Seesaw, very sophisticated use of tools, and a lot of audio-visual recommendations for you. We're then going to obviously focus on the questions that you have posed. We obviously can't cover all the questions in this first session, but we are noting those questions with possible follow-up short courses and follow-up discussions for the Northern Ireland Teachers Collaborate Forum. So the questions you posed were very much about Seesaw and how to use it effectively. Julianne is going to try and help you with that today, and we will, of course, at the end of this demonstration, we'll come on camera with you. We're using the Collaborate Ultra tool, which C2K offer and support for schools, a wonderful tool for live interaction. So we will, all three of us, come on camera and answer any questions that you have. Post-primary, as I've said, we're going to zoom in on Google Suite, two particular apps today, but we will touch on other things as well. We're going to look at Google Meet, and we're also good for live lessons, and we're also going to look at Jamboard, which is an interactive whiteboard or whiteboards that you can use for active learning. And I know many of the questions about live lessons are configured around the idea of how do you keep your learners active so that it's not just one-way communication. So we'll focus on that today, all of which is within Google Suite, those apps associated, of course, with Google Classroom use. Our plans, of course, are to enhance this, and so we see this very much as the first session of other sessions that will come, and so we do hope to have in the coming weeks, months ahead, more needs focused sessions to accommodate the questions that you've posed for us. My, I suppose, contribution today, other than supporting the sharing of these recommendations and ideas, is really to start the conversation and to start you thinking. And I have two big messages. They're messages you may have heard from me before if you've been in my classroom for blended learning. And the first is pedagogy must come first. And by that, what I'm really saying as part of this COVID challenge that we're all experiencing at the current time is we must focus on good teaching, learning and assessment. If Google Classroom or Seesaw feels like homework, it becomes a chore to our young people, and we don't want that. Remote does not need to feel like homework. We can teach through this modality. It is difficult to begin with, but once you go on that journey, you will realize that there is an opportunity for you to be very present with your learners, to teach your learners. Text-based documents and sharing of materials online and setting assignments online are all well and good, but without teacher presence, whether you are primary or post-primary, and without that regular synchronous communication with your students or pupils, you will not be able to sustain that. We must go back to basics and remember what teacher presence is all about. So that's vitally important. My second message is don't feel you have to do everything overnight. Less is more. Our young people don't want too many tricks and too many apps. They want one simple, seamless lesson. That's what they're used to. So start small. Certainly explore the various tools that are out there, particularly in the Google Suite or in the activity side of Seesaw, but don't feel you have to have too many things too quickly. Start small and focus on being present and teaching your pupils. That's what's going to get you through this. Planning lessons is really about going back to basics and be present with your learners. And that's my advice. It's the best advice I can give you. Don't change how you do things. Try new ways of doing them. So if we have to deliver our lessons using Google Meet, so be it, or Collaborate Ultra is the other tool that we're using ourselves today to interact with you. So don't feel you have to jump too quickly. Try one tool at a time and find the tools that work for you, much like you would in your face-to-face bricks and mortar classroom. My second piece of advice is Seesaw, wonderful environment, very interactive opportunities, but it doesn't work unless there is a stimuli. And that stimuli, that most important part of teaching, is the teacher being present. And you are the main stimulus. So let's get you in front of your learners. Whether it's pre-recorded or whether it is live is entirely up to you, but that is our very strong recommendation. Blended learning does not have to feel like the teacher is giving us homework online. It can be so much more. And the last point I would like to make on this is Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams users for post-primary or upper key stage primary. What I would say to you is synchronicity and asynchronicity. That's live interaction with your students, real-time communication and teaching, and of course pre-recorded teaching and learning, or not real-time teaching. But don't think these packs that we're sharing with our students much value that they have. They are not replacing teacher presence. The teacher has to be interactive with the student, and text does not deliver. A good lesson is still a good lesson. Let's get back to that. Don't mistake check-ins with lessons. Some people are checking in with their students, 10-minute check-ins and so on. That's wonderful for resilience and well-being, but they're not lessons. So just being on camera for 10 minutes to check in, good and important as they are not replacing your lesson. Lessons should have good structure, a beginning, a middle and an end. They should have learning outcomes and there should be assessment criteria. So again, let's think about how you're doing that at the current time. Without tools like Collaborate Ultra, like Google Meet, you won't be able to do that. So let's think about how we can do that. Audio and video tools, those multimedia tools are going to help you, and you'll see from some of the examples today from both Karen and from Julianne that they're the tools that have worked for them, that got engagement. And really what we're talking about is real-time teacher presence. We call it synchronous teaching or synchronous lessons, and remote and anytime communication, of course pre-recorded and or pre-loaded content. But it's what brings it alive. You need both. The curriculum must come to the child and or the young person and their family. It cannot be that the curriculum dictates the way forward, particularly at this time we can see that. It won't work. So I'm just going to come back on screen for you, and I'm going to pass you over now to my two wonderful colleagues. First Julianne, and then I'll come in at the end of that just to highlight some of the key points, and then I'm going to introduce you to Karen. So Julianne, everybody, and please do give her a warm welcome. Any questions, please feel free to type into your chat there, and if you're on YouTube, type into YouTube where we're live streaming today, and or if you're in Collaborate Ultra, please feel free to type your questions in the chat panel.
Hello everybody, my name is Julianne Mullally and I've been a primary school teacher for about 17 years or so now. I've been more specialising in nursery and foundation stage in more recent years in my career, and I've also been an active user of Seesaw for about 7 years now. In my previous school, I've just changed schools in the last academic year, but in my previous school we used Seesaw as an active learning journal for children throughout the year. And then of course it became into its own as a completely different type of resource when remote learning kicked in the first lockdown back last March. As I mentioned earlier, I've since moved schools, so I've moved to a new school that didn't have an online platform for children, and they've just recently taken on Seesaw just before Christmas, so we're really back at the beginning of the journey with them, but again it's become an invaluable resource for that with the current situation as it is. Just a number of years ago, I then joined the master's team in Stranmillis, and I took on to do a master's in teaching, hence why I'm here today through Celia, who was my tutor at the time. And just before the first lockdown back in March, I was about to start my dissertation, my final module, and because of COVID and no practice in schools, I had to take a different direction with my dissertation and my research. And I ended up then doing it on remote learning and parental engagement, and it was a participatory action research project that I ran throughout the first lockdown. So it taught me a lot about remote learning and a lot about what worked and what doesn't work with it. So today I'm going to sort of start off and give you a little rundown of what the masters and the research picked up on and what the findings were, and then I'm going to talk you through Seesaw as an online learning platform for remote learning. So to begin, I'm going to go through the main findings that came out of the dissertation research that I did during the first lockdown. There were 4 main findings, the first being teacher presence, communication and parental engagement. And within that was the importance of synchronous and asynchronous technology. Synchronous meaning live teaching and live communication, asynchronous meaning pre-recorded lesson content and video content, okay? Within that, as we now know, technology is an essential component for remote learning, but alongside that must be running policies and procedures to support that within schools, and that we must also take into account the high value of video content and video-based teaching. Okay, so also we find that there needs to be clear and regular communication channels for parents, students and teachers, and that training and networking must take place in the future to support this, the importance of community education and family support as well around that. And then lastly, there was a responsibility on parents to fully engage in online learning in order to support their child's learning and in order to provide feedback, especially in the primary sector for young children and for parents to fully engage in order to allow teachers to assess what children have been able to do and where they're going next and to properly plan for future lessons. But again, as mentioned earlier, there is a requirement for training in order to advance parent skills with home learning and teaching. So one of the next things that came out of the findings was the importance of a community of practice within schools, and this is really where schools establish staff teams and support networks, and these are essential for the sharing of good practice, continued professional development and teacher well-being. And really within that is required a professional learning model that really has leadership buy-in within the school and staff mentoring built in throughout it. It's also the importance of quality relationships among staff are required for a community of practice to perform effectively. And one of the essential components of the development of a community of practice is developing these teams, that skills development, as well as teachers using evidence-based practice and research. So next was the importance of continued professional development, i.e. CPD, for teachers to support e-pedagogy and assessment. And really that means that new and up-to-date training is required, but it's not just in the use of technology, but also must include the development of e-pedagogy, i.e. teachers can be proficient in the use of a variety of technological platforms or applications, but they need to have the understanding behind it and the research behind it that says what's successful and what works and why. And alongside that, training must reflect pedagogical research. Therefore, teachers need to be actively seeking out the best and most current research-based practices and evidence, to go with that. And then when schools are planning for the future, that it now is essential that schools really have a blended learning policy and procedures in place to support that. But on a much wider level then, there needs to be ongoing investment and support and guidance from government bodies to support that for schools. So lastly, we also looked at the importance of emotional health and well-being, particularly among teachers and throughout the research project. And 2 main things came out of that, and that was 1, the importance of establishing quality relationships within schools, having teams and support networks built in within staff structures, so that teachers never really feel like they're paddling their own canoe, that they have a support network around them, while working like this. And lastly was also the importance of ongoing, as we mentioned before, ongoing pedagogical training, and that there needs to be an understanding of the effective strategies. Teachers need to have that understanding of effective strategies for quality online learning, and that if they have those in place, then this directly impacts their confidence and their satisfaction while working online. So I'm just going to start off by giving you a little introduction to Seesaw and what the actual landing page and profile of the application looks like. So this is your landing page basically here. So to the left is your main journal feed of activities that you will post up, okay? And to the right then are some of the tools that you will use as a teacher. So down to the right you'll have a little name for every child in your class, so they all have their individual profile, and you can tap at each child and see their page and see their activities. And that's called your main journal feed there, okay? But along to the right here, you have other different tools that are available for teachers to use. So you have activities where you can assign activities to children. They can complete them on Seesaw online and send them back to you. You have an inbox tool where you can message parents privately. And you also have skills section as well, where you can set up tagging and skills that you're developing or you're observing throughout the year with your children. So you can use it as an observational tool as well. Okay, so if we just tap on the main feed here, I'll just scroll up, and what you can see is you can pin certain posts that you want to the top of your feed that you want to keep up there all of the time, so that every time parents go on, they'll see that post there. And then if you scroll on up as well, we can post different types of activities onto the feed, and parents, can comment, children can leave voice notes, and then every week I post up a book of learning activities. Then, I post up on the Friday for the following week, and I cover activities from Monday to Thursday. And within that, then children can access videos and learning content and lessons created by me linked into their learning for that week. So if we scroll on up, you'll see that's exactly what the feed looks like, and you can see different engagement from parents as children as you go through the feed. Okay, so there are lots of tools available on Seesaw, and how you use them then can be really brilliant then for bringing that teacher presence in remote learning. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the types of things that you can do to bring that teacher presence forward in your remote learning. So using my own Seesaw, I'm just going to give you an idea of some of the types of activities that you can use to support quality remote teaching and learning. So if I scroll down here, one of the first things I post on a weekly basis, well, I actually post this on a Friday in preparation for a Monday, is a book of learning activities. I work from a Monday to a Thursday, and then I do play-based and creative type activities on a Friday. So within this book then is a suggested daily structure. So it might start off with a suggested song or a little dance or a workout with Joe Wicks. And embedded into the book are little links to some of these videos. So the parents just have to tap on the link and it will open up into the YouTube video. And then we scroll through then phonics and word work. And again, some of these have little links to the phonics Jolly Jingle songs. And then scroll through to suggested tasks for the week. So some of them might be based on some of the home learning that we've sent home in packs, and some of the tasks might be based to online, where I've maybe created little video lessons. So if we look at task 3 here, I have created a little phonics lesson, and again, the parents and the children just have to tap on it. Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. McManus. Opens up into my own YouTube channel or school YouTube channel, where the children can watch the video lesson and then take part in the activity. Again, with some mindfulness included in there, some weekly numeracy activities, and then some numeracy tasks. And again, with certain lessons, video created by myself that the kids can tap on. Hello Primary 2, welcome to your next number lesson. And that again links into the children's learning for the week. So if we tap back then, that's one of the main activities that I post on a weekly basis using Seesaw. You can also use Seesaw then to post up videos. So every Monday I post up a little pastoral video, and we could press play, and it's just a little connection with the children about what's going to happen for the week ahead, and just talking through the date and so forth. Good morning Primary 2, happy Monday again. So I'll stop that, and we'll, so again, it's another way of connecting with the children. Also, what I also use it for is we read little audio stories 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday and Friday, I post up a little audio story, and the children respond to that as well. And again, we just play the story, and it's just more of a voice recording. Hello Primary 2, are you ready for our last story of this week? Well, this is another Elmer story. I thought you enjoyed the last. So we'll just pause that there. So I'm just going to pop back to my old class from my previous school, and again, some of the types of activities that we did was that we had a particular topic with the children at the time, all about the farm, and myself and another teacher being at home on our home farms were able to put a video together for the children, and all about the farm. So we've tapped this video, and you can see, I'll play a little bit of it, but you can see then the engagement that it brings from the children.
Hi boys and girls, because our new topic is the farm, I've decided to show you lots of pictures and videos of my farm. I hope you enjoy.
Mowing, lifting, sowing, baling, growing, hauling, and buck raking, backing, stacking, plough.
Forward a little bit.
3.
Both teachers had included little bits about their own farm.
All they'd say, let go, we were quitting.
And with it, we're
When the sun went down, we'd live with the pipe, drove all night to the fuel lit run line.
from that, because it was teacher presence within it, the children were familiar with both teachers and they loved getting an insight into our home farms, then you can see the engagement that it brought. So you can see lots of parent comments and little children comments, throughout it. So if we play some of the comments.
Thank you, Miss Mullally and Miss Savage. I want to live on a farm when I'm older. Miss Savage and Miss Mullally, I hope you have a lovely Easter.
So you can see how the children and the parents have engaged with it throughout and how much they've loved, hearing
Hello,
us.
all my teachers and all my friends. I hope you have a happy Easter. Bye.
So we posted that just before Easter, but again, we'd asked the kids to post up lots of questions and then we created some follow-up videos of the farmers answering the questions. So again, another great way of bringing that sort of teacher presence to the fore using Seesaw. Lastly, we've also have different ways of getting feedback from the children. One of the ways that you can use Seesaw, that's in my current class, is the activities section, where you can assign a particular activity to children. There's lots of activities embedded into the Seesaw app that you can sort of edit as a teacher and use and add in your own teacher instructions and your own voice, and then assign it to particular children within your class. The children then complete that activity online and they send it back to you to mark and review. So that's one great way again of getting that engagement from both children and yourself and getting that feedback back to children. Another way that we're currently using is that we've created a Padlet wall, so it's like a virtual learning wall, and I've pinned this to the top of my feed because I've asked parents then to post up on the Padlet wall any of the children's learning and any of the things the children want to share with each other. So we pop up the Padlet wall, you can see then lots of different photos of different home learning that's going on and activities that the children have been engaging in. And again, it's a way, we've called it our P2 celebration wall. It's a way of sharing and celebrating the children's home learning together. So that's really the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. As I said, I'm certainly no expert in Seesaw, but I've just been using it for quite a while and I've learned different ways and techniques that I know are successful and work really well. Currently as it stands, because I'm back at the beginning of a different sort of tech journey with my new school, we're maybe not using it just as much. We're just embedding in bits and pieces at a time and giving parents time to adapt and become used to the new technological platform as well. But so far so good. They've loved it and they've especially praised it for home learning in particular as something that's been quite new and they didn't have during the last lockdown. So I'll hand it back to Celia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julianne, for such an enlightening overview of both your research at Stranmillis, which we're delighted to be part of, and thank you for sharing all of that wonderful expertise. And of course, what Julianne has highlighted for us is the very important focus of teaching and learning at this time, this most challenging time in our educational experience. And of course, it hasn't stopped. It is still with us. Irrespective of when we're back at school, college or university, for all sectors, we have some tools to help us to be present with our pupils and to engage in that pupil experience even more than we have been doing. It is a huge challenge. Nobody is asking you to rush into that, but our advice, as you can hear from Julianne, is very strong. When you do this well, when you take time to be present, even in a pre-recorded manner, as Julianne has highlighted, it is going to work. It will reap rewards. Engagement strategies will not work if the teacher is not present. Okay, next I would like to introduce you to the wonderful Karen from Northern Ireland Teachers Collaborate. Karen has a huge amount of experience to share with us. She also completed the blended learning course with Stranmillis University College and is now an advocate, even yet again, to adding to her repertoire of skills of pedagogy first. So we want to share in that dialogue with Karen as well. Karen and I looked at the questions that you had circulated to us, and we decided there's potentially so many questions about Google Classroom that we're not going to be able to cover them all today, sadly. But we will try our best. We will try to be as supportive of you as possible. But most importantly, It's starting this conversation with Northern Ireland Teachers Collaborate, and from today we hope to continue that conversation. So Karen has kindly done some extensive work in the area of synchronicity, the one challenge that we all have at the current time in our school community. I'm a parent myself, homeschooling like many of you, and I have had experience of text-based communication as well as synchronous live lessons. So I can tell you my own son, young adolescent, is really engaging in the live lessons, and that's what we want, engagement. So even if it is a younger learner, engagement is what you want going forward. So I'm going to hand over now to Karen, and thanks to Julianne. Julianne, myself and Karen will meet at the end of this presentation and demonstration from Karen, and we will of course take all questions from you. We're on the chat boards as well in between presentations if you want to start the questioning. So over to you, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Chapman from NITC, and I'd like to thank Celia and Stranmillis for organising this session today and welcome you all. From my experience, as well as what I've garnered from NITC and the responses to Celia's blended learning survey, I'm going to spend today's session covering a couple of key Google Classroom tools and skills. There are so many apps and pieces of software out there that it can be difficult to know where to start. But I'd like to reassure you that it's much more important to select 2 or 3 apps and use them effectively than get caught up in all the razzmatazz of what's the latest craze. At the heart of what we are trying to do is the pedagogy. That, above all else, should be what drives our choice of tools. Online learning may be synchronous or asynchronous. Each has its merits, and many factors will play into your decision as to which one or ones to use. In reality though, a blend of both is likely to be chosen. Unfortunately, we don't have time to cover everything today, so we're going to spend this session concentrating on how to effectively set up and manage a Google Meet, as well as how to use Google Jamboard effectively for online collaboration. And we'll try to give some real curriculum examples to make this as meaningful as possible for you. So let's get started with Google Meet. In the school context, this can be used to facilitate synchronous learning opportunities for your students. But before setting this up, it's important to establish good online netiquette. Posting expectations such as this on your Google Classroom may go to some way to help here, but it's also important that you follow your own best practice to avoid awkward situations occurring. Setting up 2-step verification and taking the likes of the Google security checkup are 2 ways to ensure your account doesn't become compromised, especially if you're using multiple devices. It's also important to ensure you don't unwittingly divulge the meeting codes you use publicly. But what if an unauthorized user attempts to gain entry to your Meet? What can you do about it? Well, let's jump into a Meet now and see how best to manage it. You can start a Google Meet in a number of ways. If you're having regular online synchronous lessons with classes, the best way of setting up a Meet is probably using the integration on your classroom page. This will generate a unique meeting link for students in this particular classroom, which can be used over and over again when you want to video conference with them. Unlike Meet set up using the 10-digit Google Calendar or Meet web codes, students cannot join a classroom Meet without you or rejoin when the Meet is over and you have left. So let's take a look at how to set up and use this. Once you've created your classroom, simply go to the Settings cog and go down to Meet and click Generate Meet Link. You can also choose in here whether you want to make it visible or not. In this example, I'm going to make it visible to my students so that it's accessible on the classwork and on the stream page. If you want to copy the link to perhaps send it to someone who isn't in your Google Classroom, you can simply click on this down arrow and select Copy, and it will copy the link to your clipboard. You can also choose to reset your Google Meet code in here. As a teacher then, if I click on this link, it will take me into the Meet. Now it's important to note that as soon as this screen appears, the Meet is technically live, even though you haven't joined it. This means that unless you've turned off the quick access control, pupils can technically enter the Meet from this point forth. When you click the Join Now button and join the Meet, you'll be presented with your classroom meeting code, but another meeting code also appears here and can be found here. This string of characters can also be seen in the address bar at the top of the screen, and herein lies the danger. If pupils screenshot this URL or share these 10 characters, it allows other people to access your Google Meet and video bomb it. To guard against video bombing, I would advise you to click on the lock icon in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and to take quick access off. This will give you the ability to accept or decline people into your Meet. You can also prevent users from sharing their screens in here, as well as enable or disable chat. All of these settings can be toggled on or off throughout the Meet. In the school environment, it's usually advised to configure all of these settings to off at the outset and adjust as and when required. Whatever way you configure these settings, it's worthwhile noting that the configuration is applied to this particular meeting code. This means if you close out of this classroom meeting and access it again at a later date, your settings will be saved. But what can you do if someone who is already in the Meet starts disrupting it? If the worst does happen and you want to kick somebody out of your Meet, simply click on the People tab and go down to the 3 dots beside their name and select Remove from Meeting. This will remove them from the meeting and they won't be able to request to rejoin it. You also have the option of muting participants in this section. Pinning users is also helpful. It puts the visual focus on one particular person. If I pin Karen Chabin here, you'll see that the focus shifts to her. I would often encourage my students to pin me as I'm the teacher so they can concentrate on what I'm saying or doing and avoid unnecessary distractions. One of the problems I often come across in a Meet is that the teacher cannot see themselves as well as their class. To address this issue, close this panel, and in the top right hand corner of the screen, when you hover over your initial, you should see a little tiled icon. Switching this on will allow you to see yourself. However, in this particular example, it's telling me I can't show myself due to the layout I have chosen. To address this issue, simply click on the 3 dots in the lower right hand corner of your screen and go to Change Layout. Any of these layouts, apart from the Spotlight one, should allow you to see yourself. I'm going to select the Auto one and close. Now when I go back up to that tiled icon, I am able to select myself and show myself on the screen. Another issue users commonly report is not being able to see their class while sharing their screen. There are a number of ways around this. You may connect up to another monitor and then choose the screen you want to display. So now if I go to Present Now and choose to share my entire screen, I can pick from one of the 3 screens that I have attached to this PC. In this particular example, I'm going to select Screen 3. I'm now presenting this screen. As you can see, I can still see who is on the call. Another way of doing this would be to set your layout to grid view and then access the Meet on another device such as a mobile phone and present from there. The downside of this is that it will give you another device to have to worry about and manage. The final way of addressing this problem would be to overlay your presentation window with your Google Meet screen. To do this, have whatever documents you want to present open in new tabs and simply pull out your Meet screen, minimize it, manipulate it, drag it to the part of the screen that it's not going to interfere too much with your presentation, and voila, you can see who's on the call but you can also see what you're presenting. So we've looked at how to set up and manage a Google Meet. Now let's look at some of the really cool features that it has to support your lessons. I'd like to spend the next couple of minutes looking at Google Jamboard, which is effectively a whiteboard that can be shared with your students. You can access this by going to jamboard.google.com from your Google Chrome account, or alternatively by clicking on the waffle in your Google account and scrolling down to Jamboard. Alternatively, if you're already in a Meet, as I currently am, Jamboard may be accessed by clicking on the three dots in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and scrolling up to Whiteboard Open a Jam. When you click on this, you'll then have the option of starting a new whiteboard or choosing an existing one from your drive. Today I'm just going to open an existing one from my drive. As Jamboard is fully integrated with Google Meet, it then asks me if I want the other users on the call to be able to view or edit this document. I'm going to allow my pupils to edit it, but be careful here, as if you want your Jamboard to be used again, you may not want pupils interfering with it. If that's the case, then you could upload the Jamboard as a classroom assignment and set the privileges so that pupils get their own copy, which they can then edit. For today's lesson though, I'm happy enough to grant edit access. Just going to maximise this Jamboard window. Within Jamboard, you can use the pen tool to write or draw anything you want. When you select it, it'll give you a number of options with a variety of different styles of pen and colours to choose from. This can be particularly effective if you're using a device with a stylus. If you aren't happy with what you've drawn or scribbled, in this case, you can simply use the eraser tool to rub it out, or click on Clear Frame and that will clear your entire screen. For the purposes of this demonstration though, I'm going to start by setting my background, and I'm just going to choose the jotter style in here, though you can upload your own. And I'm going to create a simple classification board. I'm going to start to do this by using the shape tool, which you'll find down here, but if you click on that and expand it out, you'll see that there are a number of shape options available. And I'm going to choose this sort of rounded rectangle one and draw a rounded rectangle over on the left-hand side of my screen. I could colour this in if I wanted to. So, for example, I could make that pink. I'm also now going to duplicate this and place it over here. I'm now going to use my text tool to label each of these rectangles. So this side is going to be my land animals. And over here, on the other side, I'm going to have my water animals. Okay. And to start pupils off with this, I could basically then use images to illustrate what I would categorise as a land animal and what would be categorised as a water animal. To do this, I'm going to click on my Add Image tool. I'm going to go to my Google Drive, and I'm going to find my images. So I'm going to use my polar bear and insert that. And if I use this selection tool, I can move this about the screen. So I'm going to move it into the relevant category. I'm going to repeat the process, add the image of a whale and insert it. And actually the select tool is still on, so I can just drag that to where I want that to go. Now you could have a board with all sorts of animals already on it and get pupils to simply drag these into the appropriate box. You could extend this task by getting pupils to research and classify their own animals and then get other students to label them. Sticky notes are useful for labelling things, so I'm just going to demonstrate the use of a sticky note now. You have up to 20 jams in one Jamboard, and they really do make an excellent online collaboration tool. I've put together a few examples from across the curriculum, from simple classification and sorting activities, to labelling, Searching and presenting. The only limits are your imagination. Here you can see how Jamboard could be used in science to check the understanding of key terms. They're also great for helping you or your class organise ideas for a particular story in English or a movie in ICT. I particularly like this example for all you musicians out there, using the sticky notes to evaluate someone's performance. They can be used at any stage of a lesson. Take this history board, which shows what a pupil's beliefs and understanding were at the outset of a particular topic. Later in history, we can see how a photo was annotated through class discussion, and then how a group went on to annotate a piece of text. Once this series of lessons was completed, the class was then divided into teams, each coming up with its own Jamboard of questions to get another team to answer. Some of my personal favourite Jamboards, though, are the ones designed to check comprehension, as well as those designed to help students make predictions, such as this one from science or this graph example from business studies. Jamboards can provide an excellent tool to help you recap on a particular topic or topics, as well as check in with your students either during or at the end of a lesson to gauge their understanding. Within Jamboard, you also have the option of downloading your Jam and saving it as a PDF or saving it as an image. If you're working on a Jam in a Google Meet, you also have the option to record it. Simply flick back over to your Meet, present your Jam. Once you're presenting your Jam, you can then simply go up and hit the Record Meeting option. It'll say your recording will start soon. Flick over to your Jam, do whatever you want to do with it. So in this case, I'm just going to move a few things about just to show there's been a change. Once you're happy and you've recorded your particular session, you can then simply click back into the Meet, stop recording, and this will save that recording to your Google Drive. Hopefully, today's session has given you some ideas as to how best to use Google Meet and Google Jamboard to support your students.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that wonderful overview of both Google Meet, a synchronous tool for a live lesson. So if that doesn't whet your appetite for synchronicity, we don't know what will. Inevitably, it's a challenge, and we know that teacher presence is difficult at this time. We're not ruling out all of the challenges that you're going through, but even pre-recorded lessons, you've heard from Julianne today, are having an impact. And that's what this is about, impact. So if there is anything that we can do, as Karen has said, leading us into the NI Teacher Collaborate Forum again, please do get in touch with us. We are happy to help. You will see from some of the contributions that people have made and shared with you that many of them have gained significantly in their teaching experience by taking part in some of our courses, by taking part in conversations with us, and as a volunteer for Northern Ireland Teachers Collaborate, I'm happy to meet anybody who would like to get started from any part of their journey. So please do stay in touch with us and continue this conversation with us online. We are, as I said, previous to Karen talking and Julianne, we are designing little short courses to support you, and we will be in touch with even more of Google Classroom, Google Suite, and indeed Seesaw. Thank you very much.